So many different people groups, diverse cultures and languages. So many differences, but they would all participate in the same rituals of worship. They would all burn the same incense and participate in the same holidays and the same festivals. The Jews had been the only people group to have an agreement to not participate in the worship, but even the Jewish people had constant wars and uprising. Having this new group of Christians seemed even more dangerous because they were spreading to all areas of Rome and infecting all peoples of all nations and all cultures. It could not be allowed to continue without risking ending the one thing holding Rome together, the worship of Caesar. Caesar had another concern. The Goth group had started to attack Rome and even winning some of the battles. Caesar believed it was the Christians' lack of worship that was angering the gods and causing them to lose these battles. The night before the trial, the pastor of the church had a dream. A ladder came down from heaven. A voice called him up, but as he began climbing the ladder, snakes and dragons began to attack him. He had to fight off the snakes and the dragons to continue to climb the ladder. Once he got to the top, he saw ultimate beauty, and then he saw Jesus, who had a conversation with him. The pastor awoke and told the church they would be in heaven with Jesus, but they would have to first fight Satan, who would be tempting them to give up. He also said God told him he would not have to face a bear. Being killed by a bear was his worst fear. Soon after the dream, Felicity gave birth to her baby. At the trial, each person was given the opportunity to denounce Jesus Christ and throw some incense on the fire. They each refused. When Felicity had her chance, she also refused, and a family friend stepped forward and took her baby from her. I promised to raise him to love Jesus Christ and to know how much you loved him. When it was time for Perpetua to stand before the emperor, her father stepped forward. Perpetua could see him. He was holding her son. He called out to her, "Think about your child. Do you want your son to grow up knowing his mother chose a false god over him? Just a pinch. It does not mean anything. It is just a pinch." She refused to throw the incense on the fire. Everyone was taken back to prison. Perpetua thought about what her father had said. She did not want her son to grow up and not know what happened to her. She wanted her son to know how much she loved him, but also wanted him to know how much she loved Jesus Christ. She began to write her story. The rest of the time in prison, she wrote a letter to her son and told her whole life story. Finally, it was the day of the games. The church was brought into the arena. Soldiers with whips entered from the opposite end. They walked towards the group and then began to whip them. The pastor was taken and tied to a pole. Then a giant bear was released into the arena. The church looked at the pastor, who suddenly paled. He had been promised in his vision by Jesus that he would not be killed by a bear. The bear walked towards the pastor, stood there, and then turned around, walked back into his cage, and did not kill anyone. Then came a wild boar. The boar ran towards the pastor and at the last minute turned, attacked, and killed the soldier who was standing next to the pastor. Then a leopard came, and the leopard killed the pastor. Perpetua and Felicity were attacked by a bull. They were trampled and thrown into the air, but they did not die. Perpetua's dress was torn. She wanted to be modest, so she took a pin from her hair and pinned her dress so it would be modest. She then fixed her hair and stood before the emperor. "I will not die in disgrace. I will die with honor." The emperor ordered the guards to kill her with the sword. The guard, who was to kill Perpetua, began to shake. This is not what he had joined the military for. He should have been protecting women like Perpetua, not killing them. He could see how calm, how brave, and how beautiful she was. Perpetua knelt and even had to help the guard steady his sword so he could kill her. Normally, the crowd would cheer when the last person died, but this time was different. Perpetua was not a slave or a peasant. She was a Roman citizen and a woman they had admired and looked up to. She was one of them, and she had died with such grace. The crowd turned on the court and began to boo them. Perpetua's death was a turning point for the games. People saw for the first time the humanity of what was happening, and the society's acceptance of the games began to change. The guard, when he returned to Perpetua's prison, found the letter to her son. He finished the letter by adding the details of her death. The letter was then passed around the churches, and Perpetua became the first female Christian writer. Today, people still celebrate her death on March the 7th. Travelers will stand in what is left of the arena and read her story. Here is a quote from the book, and it is the last sentence that she wrote. "I decided last night and strengthened my resolve this morning to have eyes for no man but Jesus. If intimacy was really what he desired most, then I desired it too. I felt strongly free from life as I had known it." Her death was in the year 202.